Good evening, everyone, on the feast day of St. John of Shanghai and San Francisco. Probably the saint that is most responsible for me converting from Roman Catholicism in 2014 after the election of Pope Francis to Eastern Orthodoxy, due to having two dreams in which he appeared kind of before I really knew who he was. Okay, so I had heard of St. John. I was interested in him, but I had never really seen pictures of him because it was right at, it was before I converted. I was going to daily mass before work in Sonora. Look at this gorgeousness here. And but when Francis got elected, even though I had liked Pope Benedict because I was like a rad trad, I immediately started researching Eastern Orthodoxy on the internet. Like the moment I saw him come out on the balcony, I had a shiver go up my spine. And I probably was converted intellectually, mentally, theologically, and just practically in about, a day or so, just reading church history and understanding that there were 5 patriarchates and Rome split off, claiming papal supremacy. And it was pretty quick. But I was struggling with it and I wasn't sure what to do. And I was begging God to tell me what to do. Give me a sign if I'm supposed to stay Roman Catholic or convert to Eastern Orthodoxy. So one night I went to bed and I had the following dream. I dreamed I was in the sky in my 1968 Volkswagen Squareback that my mom had bought for me and had it fixed up before I drove it back from Berkeley, California, where I graduated high school in 76. No, I'm missing a few decades there. No, anyway, I went to New York after college in Santa Barbara and UCLA. I drove that car back to New York. So in the dream, I was in that beloved 68 Volkswagen Squareback. But my car was flying around all crazy in the sky and had no direction, and I was really scared in the dream and just freaking out. I had no control over the car. But then, so I remember being alarmed, and then the car started to sort of drift down, sort of float down towards the earth. And I saw below me this windy brick street that actually exists in San Francisco called Lombard Street. So my car was just kind of, and it just settled down onto Lombard Street. And I'm driving the Volkswagen on these windy curves of the brick street. I keep stumbling out here because my depth perception isn't that good anymore. Excuse me. So my car drifts down and it lands, and then I'm actually driving on the brick windy road. And pretty soon, as I'm driving and feeling very peaceful again, I look into the far future and I see this little tiny man way in front of me, and he seems to be dressed in white, and I'm just sort of driving. I'm getting closer, and then I notice to the right and the left of me, I see a stream of people processing towards the man, like they were on the sidewalk on both sides of the now straight street. They were carrying very large, I would say huge, Fabergé eggs, covered in jewels, gold, silver, diamonds, rubies, emeralds, pearls. But they were big. They were that big. Okay, really big. They were holding them in their arms and just processing, walking towards that little tiny man. who was looking straight at me in the distance, right in front of me in the middle of this road. And they kept processing towards him, kind of disappearing, and I kept driving towards him. And when I got close enough, he just looked at me, and I said, "Who is this man wearing like a baker's hat?" Because he had on the white satin, like bishop's crown. I forget the actual name, but other than the fact that it was all beautiful satin and silk and decorated with pearls, he kind of looked like a baker, So I just was like, wow, who's that? But I figured out it wasn't a baker because the robes were just too beautiful and like glistening, silver white and shining, but I didn't know who it was. And then I woke up and I didn't really think too much more about it right then. But then like 2 nights later, but I was still struggling mightily with, should I become Orthodox or stay Catholic, And then 2 nights later or 3, I had another dream. And this dream was a lot faster. It didn't have much narrative and, no events really happening in it. But I was lying flat on my back, so my feet would be at the tip of my toes. My head would be up where my prayer bracelet is, and I was just looking straight up. I don't know if I was lying on the grass or in a room or in bed. I was just lying down on my back, looking straight up into the eyes of a man who was standing just behind my head, and he was looking down at me, like from above me, like that, straight into my eyes as I'm laying here. And he just looks at me, and he's wearing the exact robe that he wore as a bishop, the one that's like scarlet and purple, kind of stripy. He's wearing that robe, and he just looks at me again for a fairly long moment, and then I wake up. And I can't remember like how much later, weeks later or months later, that I figured out that was St. John. Oh, what do you have, buddy? He's got a bone. It looks like a petrified bone from 1,000,000 years ago. Buddy, that could be like a deer antler or something. I don't think you should be eating that. I'm going to take that as like a relic of a deer and put it up in my little area where I find things and save them. You wouldn't believe this. I have a little tiny bat. I've got 2 hummingbirds mummified. Anyway, so those 2 dreams were what pushed me over, because once I did find out who it was, because I saw pictures of him and I recognized the face, and I said, oh, I dreamed about St. John. And that was just very encouraging. And the dreams actually came true about 7 years later, when a new canvas icon was put up in our church. Okay, this may not sound like much, but I've been in the choir ever since I was a catechumen. And right across from where I stand, or sometimes I have a stool to sit on because of my bad back, across the other, all the way over to the other wall. So I'm on the women's side over here, or whatever side it is. I think it's women's on the right. Or is that Jesus? Whatever. No, I think it's the Jesus side. Yes, it's the men's side, but we sing over here. I looked across one day, after I'd been in the choir for a while. I'd actually been moved to where I stood in different places, and I looked over, and there was the exact icon of him wearing that set of vestments. I just went, oh, okay, that's kind of neat. You're looking at me, and you look about as small in my field of vision as the dream did. But then I went like this and looked up, because they had just put up a new canvas icon on the ceiling of our church. And I look up, and I'm looking up into the eyes of St. John, who is on an arched part of the ceiling, angled. He's looking straight down into my eyes, because I lifted my head back and looked up, like I wasn't laying down on the ground, but I looked up, and there was St. John looking at me. I feel like he's got my back and he's got my front in church, where I'm glued to my spot to chant, to have the blessing, to have the gift to be allowed to sing the verses and the prayers in Divine Liturgy and Vespers. It's like the greatest gift I feel I could have been given after baptism, in the sacraments, obviously in the Eucharist, to be allowed to chant and sing. So those are the two dreams, and they kind of came true in a very kind of abstract, artistic way. But I really do feel like St. John has me. And I think lately I've been kind of neglecting him a little. So I repented to him the other day in prayer. I have his akathist. I'm not good at doing akathist yet. I'm trying to get more into the prayers of the church at home. I do a lot of freestyle, just praying and communing with God and the Jesus prayer. But yeah, I need to do more of what the church says to do. So I've got the booklet for St. John. And actually I found the akathist for Father Seraphim Rose too. So anyway, those are my two dreams. And really, 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 St. John helped me convert to Holy Orthodoxy. And we go down to the cathedral, which is only 3 hours drive away, whenever we can, especially whenever we run out of the bottles of holy oil. So sometimes we go down there and I'll get like 12 bottles. They give them to you free, and they don't mind giving a lot away. But, usually my husband will get 6 and I'll get 6 or something. But we always give them away up here at the... Okay, you guys, what's the name of the place? The Blessed Seraphim Rose Orthodox Strugglers Refuge, where we try to study the life of Father Seraphim Rose mainly, and I pray to him because he's a saint. And we're having another icon commissioned, and now my husband is calling me, so I better answer. Okay, keep praying for Elias. Bye. God bless.